Thank you very much for this particular weather. And I'm going to talk about the pelvic carcinoma, the pillars and pitfalls. Of course, this talk will not be exhaustive because there's a large field of view and there's a wide range of topics about those carcinomas, but I'm trying to give you some take-home messages, particular messages to keep in mind when you go back in your daily practice. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the cervical carcinoma. And after, sorry, because I don't see anything in my computer, so I'm going to talk like that. After, I will talk about the endometrial carcinoma, and to finish, the ovarian carcinoma. Concerning the cervical carcinomas, you have, when you start the exam, to know what is the challenge of this pathology. And the particular challenge is, will be necessary or not to perform a neoadjuvant treatment, and will it be possible to have a conservative treatment, especially for the young patients. So of course, we have some figure classifications, but as you can see here, it is quite boring and quite tough to remember. But you have to remember the philosophy of those classifications. First of all, when you start an exam, your favorite technicians ask you, what is your protocol? And the protocol has to be tailored compared to specific pathologies. And the first message is T2 is your best friend forever. T2 is the main important sequence to perform when you do a pelvic MRI. And concerning the carcinoma of the cervix, you have to plan two orthogonal plans, axial, and the orthogonal has to be just orthogonal to the cervix. Not the corpus of the uterus, but the cervix. And you have to enlarge your field of view to have the visualization of the kidneys, to have a very good screening of the lymph nodes, lumbar-aortic lymph nodes. So here you have the normal pattern of a cervix, which is differentiated by 3 layers. Here you have the mucosa, the stroma, and the smooth muscle, and it's a pattern like a ring. And when you have the lesion, which appears in intermediate signal, you have to keep in mind to see the limits of this ring. You can perform other sequences, dynamic contrast enhancement, for example, and diffusion, which are the 2 optional sequences that you can perform, but keep in mind that the main sequence is the T2 to have a good screening. The first thing is to do a correct measurement of the tumor. And why are we so essential? It is because the clinical exam has a very bad accuracy. As you can see here, when they perform clinical exam, the accuracy of this clinical exam is less than 60%, whereas MRI has a very good accuracy, near 100%. So MRI is essential. And the threshold that you have to keep in mind is 4 centimeters. It is the measure which is very important in the figure classification. For example, you have a lesion here which is less than 4 centimeters and here superior to 4 centimeters. It is important because if it is superior to 4 centimeters, it will be necessary to perform neoadjuvant therapy. You can have a conservative treatment if the lesion is smaller than 2 cm, and you can perform a simple trachelectomy where you can keep the corpus of the uterus and just remove the cervix. The second important message, just after the size in your written report, is to set if there is or not an extension to the parametrium. And for that, it is important to keep the pattern of the ring of the cervix. And if you see the lesion crossing the limit of the ring, it means that there is an extension in the parameters, and it is a very important element to write in your report. We know that concerning the parametrium invasion, MRI has a very good accuracy concerning the sensibility and the specificity. And it means that the woman will undergo a neoadjuvant chemotherapy. For the other states, of course, there will be a complete surgery with lymphadenectomy, which is not so easy to perform for the surgeons. So it is important to say if there is or not risk to have extension to the other organs. And the elements which are very important is the third distal of the vagina, and for example here the extension to the bladder. The presence of metastasis is correlated to the presence of extension to the lymph nodes. So the third message is that you have to perform a large field of view, which you have to say if there is lymph nodes in lumbar-aortic areas. Here you have an example. We know now that MRI has a better accuracy than CT concerning the lymph nodes, but it's quite not so good. So the other imaging which is important to perform, it's very useful is the TIP CV. And you can see that there is extension, for example, here. There is some pitfalls. It's not so easy to know whether or not there is an extension of the lesion through the parameters. So, for example, cervical stroma can be indistinct. For the important lesions, as you can see here, sometimes it is very difficult to see if there is an interruption of this ring or it's just the edema of the lesion. And sometimes it is a classical pitfall. It is quite the same thing concerning the bladder. For example, here you have an extended lesion, and it's difficult to know if this intermediate signal here is the extension of the tumor or it's just edema. And it changes completely the management of the patient. So it was the first part of this talk. Now we're going to move to the endometrial carcinoma. And here you have again another classification, which is very boring, but you have to keep in mind 3 points I'm going to present you. The challenge is for endometrial carcinoma if it would be necessary to perform lumbar-aortic lymphadenectomy or not. The first step to diagnose endometrial carcinoma is of course the ultrasound, and it is a typical heterogeneous lesion, as you can see here, with Doppler color, and we know that the threshold of the risky lesion is when the thickness is superior to 4 millimeters. When you have this kind of presentation, of course, it will be necessary to perform biopsy with hysteroscopy before performing MRI. And the other question is, what the MRI protocol? Of course, the first sequence that you will do is T2, thank you. It's T2, and the other sequences, which will be very important for this endometrial carcinoma, will be gadolinium enhancement and diffusion. Here you have an example of endometrial lesion, and to set the actual sequences, you have to put them orthogonal to not the cervix, of course, but the corpus, the body of the uterus. And for in the same thing that we talk about the cervix, it will be necessary to have a large field of view of the kidneys. And when you perform the other sequences, you compare the three sequences, the T2, the DCE, the injection of gadolinium, and the diffusion. The thing that is very important to write in your report is the involvement of the myometrium. Is it inferior or superior to 50%? Because if it is superior to 50%, it is a bad prognosis, and lymphadenectomy will be probably necessary. Here you have an example of the lesion, which appears like that with gadolinium injection, and here with diffusion. And you can see on this slide that it is easier to limit the lesion in diffusion, as you can see here, and with DCE sequences. So 50% of the myometrium is the threshold that you can set to be sure that the prognosis will be better if it is inferior to 50%. Here you have an example. The lesion is just near the junctional zone. The junctional zone is this dark line here, which represents the third inner part of the myometrium. And when you don't have the crossing of this junctional zone, you are sure that it is less than 50%, as you can see here. Here you have an example of an invasion superior to 50%. As you can see here, that injection, it is easier to limit the border of the lesions. Here another example with the lesions came and crossed quietly the serosa of the uterus. So there is some pitfall because for this population the uterus are often small size, and it's difficult sometimes to differentiate the lesion from the myometrium. It is the first pitfall. Sometimes you have an overestimation of the depth of myometrium when you have a large hematometria. As you can see here, there is a big important hematometria which blows up the cavity, and it's difficult to know if there is invasion throughout the myometrium or it's just the effect of the compression by the hematometria. So we know that we are not very fair concerning the presentation of hematometria. Sometimes the evasion of the myometrium can be hampered by the presence of myomas or adenomyosis. As you can see here, you have a uterus with several myomas, and it's difficult to be sure that the limit of the lesion is here or here because you have a lot of myomas. For adenomyosis, where you have hyperintense foci here, which are specific of adenomyomas, it is difficult to know if it is lesion or just adenomyosis. And sequence with injection can help you to see the limit of the lesions. As you can see here, it is important to correlate at each time the sequence T2, the sequence with the injection, and the diffusion sequence to have a more clear limit of the lesion. Sometimes the tumor, there is an important edema, and you have an important enhancement just near the lesion, not the lesion, but just the edema, and you can, it can be confusing to be sure that the limits are less or more than 50% of the myometrium. The other thing that is important to set in your written report, it is the landmark of the left renal vein. because it is the limit, it is the limit for the lymphadenectomy, and sometimes it is a surprise for the surgeon because the left renal vein has not the same place that we know, classical place. So it is a surprise. So it is important to, in your MRI, have a large field of view to be sure that that the anatomy of the renal vein is classical. And the last part of my talk will concern the ovarian carcinomas. The big difference compared to the two first carcinomas is when you perform MRI for ovarian carcinomas, you're not sure that it is a carcinoma. You don't have biopsy. We have revised a new classification, FIGO classification, but as you can see here, it's another time quite boring and tough to remember. And the diagnostic challenge will be, first, is it a malignant mass or not? And is there carcinosis or not? What is the MRI protocol? The three main important sequences are T2, of course, and dynamic contrast enhancement gadolinium and diffusion. And the first thing is it a uterine or adnexal mass? And for this, we have some tools. As you can see here, it is important to follow the lumbo-aortic ligament, which is specific of the ovary. And you can see here that we can follow this ligament to be sure that it is an ovary. The other tool that you can use is the anatomical place of the ovary, and we know that the ovary is just between the external and internal iliac vessel. So here you have a typical normal ovary, so you have to search for this classical anatomical landmark in the sagittal plane. For example, here you have a big mass just in the pelvis, and it's difficult to be sure that it's an ovary or not. Here you have the right ovary, and on the sagittal view you have the left ovary. So you are sure that this mass is not developed from the ovaries. The second mission is to characterize the adnexal mass, and you have two main presentations. First, the mass is classical, and you characterize the component of the mass with MRI. Here you have blood content or fat content, and it's not malignant mass. And you have the other situation where the mass is mixed. You have a solid component and liquid component, for example. It is an enlarged mass. And it will be important to study the pattern of enhancement. This example, you have an important mass on ultrasound with some solid components, and you can see here that this lesion invades. There is an involvement of the bowel, of the rectum, just behind the lesion. You perform MRI, you see this important lesion, and you can see just in the patch of Douglas here some tisular nodule, which means that there is carcinosis. You have another example. You have a mixed mass. You can see some vegetations here, little vegetations, and the element that can help you to differentiate benign and malignant is to perform some curves to characterize the type of enhancement. And we know, thanks to the work of Isabelle Thomassin, that we have three main patterns. These two patterns are quite benign. It is the intermediate enhancement, and this type of curve is a synonym of malignant lesions. So for example, when you have this type of lesion, you put a first row in the myometrium to have a referential curve, and another row in the vegetation, and you compare the both curves. And here, for example, you have a typical intermediate malignancy lesion. It was a borderline lesion. Of course, the third mission is to have a large screening to be sure that there is or not carcinosis. And as you can see here, the upper slide, which are very important to perform, show that there is some tissular nodules, which means that there is carcinosis. As you can see here. And, okay. It was not finished, but I think that there is someone who decided that it was finished. Je sais pas. Okay. So, of course, you will perform CT scan to have a large field of view of the extension of the lesion, and it's very important to complete the preoperative screening by CT. So, to conclude, it is important to tailor your protocol concerning the type of lesion that you are searching. T2 is very important. You have to put the slide orthogonal to the pathology that you study. DCE gadolinium, it's important to have a dynamic perfusion of the lesion, to have more clear visualization of the limits of the lesions. And remember that you have to perform an abdominal and pelvis MRI to have a large visualization of the lymph nodes, potentially lymph nodes invasion. The FIGO classification are here to help everybody to manage the patient, but it's very difficult to remember the FIGO classification. It's not necessary. The thing that is very important is to know what are the key points which help the surgeon and the medical team to improve the management of the patients. And I hope that you remember some key points after this presentation.
Thank you so much for the lecture.